Wow, here's another interesting post. We didn't go over this specifically. Templarum posted the only real cover up at Columbine that has some authenticity to it is the theory that several students hiding in the library were actually killed by the authorities. Two teams of police who were sweeping the building fired at one another, thinking the other were suspects. Unfortunately, some kids in the library were caught in the crossfire. I mean, that's kind of crazy too. Is that why there was some funny business with moving of the bodies? They wanted to cover that up. But again, let's not fall for false dichotomies. There could have been multiple shooters, and the police also caught other students in the crossfire. Star Viego actually has an excellent summary here. My gut feeling is that Columbine was supposed to be one of several different school attacks on or around April 20th. An investigation would have revealed they were a bunch of Satanists coordinating their attacks via the internet, which would have led to calls for government to monitor the web. If about 100 eye and ear witnesses that attest to the presence of more than two shooters isn't proof enough, I don't know what is. By the way, would it help if I told you Harris's and Klebold's fingerprints weren't found on any of their weapons and gunshot residue tests were not released? So that's very curious because, yeah, I mean, this whole thing is obviously very scary, but if all of these attacks really were coordinated and carried out simultaneously, like let's say there were those other, 15 highly coordinated school shootings and bombings, how much easier would the public go along? Like most of the normies, the gullible goof coincidence theorists, would they more willingly go along with more restrictive gun control measures if, let's say, in those 1 to 2 weeks, there were tons and tons of shootings and many more people dead? I mean, the shock effect on that, like, yeah, and then for whatever reason, what's kind of weird? Were there good guy infiltrators? Like, were there good FBI agents or whatever? Were they good guy infiltrators that actually covered this all up for a positive reason to prevent that from happening and to downplay the panic? That's an interesting wrinkle we haven't discussed here, but this is MINDSHOCK, where we try to go over every single possible theory. I might have to start to lean to that because that kind of makes sense, because it looks like that original government plan, whether it was MK Ultraing, Manchurian Candidate kids, or like there were handlers on the internet like coercing these kids in the websites and all that. If that was the original plan, so there's, evil and good forces within the government, were the few good guys, did they kind of intercept this plan and they orchestrated this conspiracy to an extent for the greater good? So this episode's getting kind of long now. I mean, I guess maybe for MINDSHOCK, some don't consider it that long, but we're not going to get to the satanic stuff. I'll cover that in the next episode, but there is one more critical point I wanted to go over. The fact that 18 students were told not to return to school post-Columbine. Now, why would that be? Do any of the coincidence theorists have any guesses? So let's go to Everlasting Contrast. It is a blog on Columbine. A lot of interesting tidbits of information here, with also obvious references to the documentation. So here is a post on Melissa Souter. I don't know how much we went over her prior. This is labeled here on this blog, Dylan's Dismissed Dauntless Damsels. I mean, this person really has a way with words. Jamie Lydia Schaffner, document 4412, freshman at Columbine High School, stated that she was not a member of the Trenchcoat Mafia and did not consider herself to be an associate of the group. She admitted that she wears black t-shirts often, but they are mostly of rock bands on tour with their concert dates and locations on the back. The only Trenchcoat Mafia members she knew were Harris and Klebold. She knew Klebold as an acquaintance. They would occasionally walk around the school together, but she did not see him away from school setting. She recalled one day when she was with him and a few of his friends outside of the school at a designated smoking area. Klebold was given a test from an unknown magazine regarding normalcy. The test indicated that Klebold was normal, and Schaffner said she was surprised at the result. She stated she thought Klebold was strange because he always wore sunglasses. Klebold had told her that he was paid between $200 and $300 for his sunglasses. One day at school, he was at school and appeared very depressed, and he told her it was because he broke his sunglasses. She described Klebold's normal attire as black concert t-shirts and his black trench coat. Klebold once told her he wanted to buy a bright red leather jacket. Klebold never gave her any indication that he was planning or capable of committing the attack on the school. Schaffner said she was in the Commons on the day of the attack at the school. She said she was lying on the floor of the Commons to the left of the stairs with Melissa Sauter. Document 4500. Anti-threat policy, a harsh lesson. Denver Post staff. Writer, October 22nd, 1999. So this is in the Denver Post article. The 17-year-old Columbine high school student arrested this week isn't the only one at the wrong end of the Jefferson County School District's new zero tolerance policy. I'm assuming they're talking about Eric Vake here, but anyway, in another case of students reporting on students, Columbine sophomore Jamie Lydia Schaffner, 15, was issued a ticket in September by the sheriff's deputy stationed at the school. Her crime: some freshman girls told administrators that Schaffner and Eric Harris said Eric Harris was still alive, that she wanted to marry him, and that he left her here to, quote, finish the job, end quote. Lydia, a proud goth who takes her nickname from the Winona Ryder character in the movie Beetlejuice, but not a member of the Trenchcoat Mafia, denies it. Quote, all I told them was how I met Harris and Dylan Klebold, Lydia said. I told them they were nice guys and I never thought they would do something like this, end quote. Lydia and the Columbine senior arrested Tuesday for allegedly threatening to, quote, finish the job, end quote, started by Harris and Klebold, are two kids with firsthand experiences of the school district's tough stance against threats, even perceived threats of violence. In these nervous post-Columbine days, Jefferson County school officials are swooping down on any threat. Kids can accuse others by telling teachers using an anonymous tip box at the school or by calling a hotline overseen by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. But critics argue that perhaps some students have become victims of this policy, that teens already considered outcasts are being further cast out based on another student's allegations. It amounts to high school McCarthyism, said Denver lawyer Grant Marylander. It's the willingness on the part of school administrators, school boards, and teachers to rely upon what might otherwise be unverified claims made against students who are unpopular for whatever reason, Marylander said. The school district defends the policy, saying the horror of 15 deaths at Columbine High on April 20th is enough proof that it is needed. Whether a person makes a threat or says something to friends, we have to take these things seriously. That's standard practice articulated by the events of April 20th, district spokesman Rick Kaufman said. Yeah, but here's the thing. There's a difference between investigating to see if there is a threat and simply issuing tickets, arrests, and all this if there is no actual evidence, just a hearsay situation. There's a huge difference between those two things. A third and similar case is pending. The parents of Melissa Sauter, a Columbine sophomore, filed a notice in August that may sue the school district for barring the then freshman from classes last year at Chatfield. The district said Melissa was overheard by other students saying she was glad people were killed during the shootings and that maybe she would have helped Harris and Klebold carry out their plan. She denies she said it. You know, here's the thing, though. I mean, is freedom of speech not a thing? Or, again, dark humor, it's a way for people to cope, even innocent people who are grief-stricken. There are some people who process grief by making what many would claim are severely inappropriate comments, but that's their own way of coping. So there's a difference between that and any actual evidence that there's any kind of violent threat or anything to that nature of actually carrying anything out. There's a huge difference between that. Like in the case of Harris and Klebold being reported with actual pipe bombs and all these things, that's a lot different than them saying things about killing people or whatever. I mean, a lot of high schoolers say that. There's just nothing behind it. There's a huge difference between those two scenarios. One day last fall, Sounder was called to the dean's office after she was late to one class. He asked me what I think about all day at school, Sounder says. So I told him I thought about blowing up the school. The school made me that angry. He told me I was suspended for a day and called my mom. Yeah, this is kind of a weird situation, though, because he asked her what she thought. She didn't make a threat. She just said what she daydreamed about. Is there any indication that she was actually going to do anything, or that it was even a direct threat of any kind? I mean, kids daydream about killing and blowing things. I mean, there were actual students who made videos about blowing up the school, and they were all good in the years prior. But apparently, answering a question is grounds for suspension. That's kind of weird. I mean, obviously, we don't know what that's her side of the story. Who knows what the principals would say? But yeah, that's a weird situation. This year, the Souders are working with Columbine administrators to work out an educational plan for Melissa. Both Melissa and Lydia were among 18 students asked by the district last year to seek homeschooling and not return to school after the shootings. Some of them were friends of Harris and Klebold. See, isn't that a blatant violation of everybody's right to an education, especially to their parents who are paying taxes? And why would they be asked not to return? See, if they actually violated any kind of policy, yeah, maybe they get some kind of detention, suspension, whatever. But to be asked never to return again, especially, what about all these other students who allegedly there was no actual incident? They're supposedly were just asked because they were friends of the shooters? That's kind of weird. Does anybody else find that kind of weird? Particularly, these two girls were actually present at the. I mean, yeah, this is kind of weird. I mean, this whole thing is kind of weird. Melissa and Lydia are self-described outcasts, but not members of the Trenchcoat Mafia. They're also friends. As she tells it, Lydia was sitting in the Commons area on Friday, September 3rd, just a month into the new school year. The other girls, new to the school, asked her if she knew Harrison Klebold, despite her protests that she didn't say what the girls recounted. Administrators reported Lydia to Neil Gardner, the sheriff's officer at the school. Gardner issued a ticket writing that Lydia, quote, did unlawfully impede the faculty of Columbine High School through the use of intimidation when force and violence are threatened, end quote. What? Is there any actual evidence of that other than hearsay? This is insane. The school suspended Lydia, who also had attendance problems. But Lydia's mother, Lori, had had enough. During a meeting with school officials, she withdrew her daughter, saying it was obvious by last year's request and this year's suspension that Lydia wasn't welcome at the school. Kaufman confirmed that Lydia is no longer a student at Columbine, declined to discuss specifics of her case. Now Lydia is facing a court date. George Muma, an investigator with the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office, said she will be informed by mail and will probably have to appear in 2 or 3 weeks. Lydia hasn't attended classes since the ticket was issued, instead spending her days watching television and hanging out with friends. Lori Schaffner said she'd called the county's alternative schools, but they have long waiting lists, and she was told to call back in January. She is exploring homeschooling her daughter. Just one thing is certain for Lydia, a girl who takes her nickname from the Winona Ryder character in the movie Beetlejuice, she won't be going back to Columbine. Quote, if you're coming out of the school and you're not the next John Elway to be, Lori Schaffner said, they don't want you, end quote. Yeah, I mean, this is all very shady, but we clearly have two different situations here. We have these two girls who made these comments. Then we have 16 other students who we know nothing about, the exact reasons they were asked not to return. So, with these two girls, I don't know. It really seems like they really didn't know. I don't see any evidence that they actually knew anything or were part of any plan. They were in the building. They were probably scared out of their minds, just like everybody else. And obviously, that kind of traumatic situation, people deal with it in different ways. Also, we have no idea what kind of mean girl situation this was, with possibly like other preppy kids picking on the goth and then lying about what she said. So clearly, nobody would be surprised if that was the actual case. Or they provoked her and insulted her, and then she kind of retaliated with that kind of comment to scare them, whatever the case may be. Either way, there's really doesn't seem to be any evidence that these two girls knew anything about anything. However, regarding the 16 other students who were asked not to return. Why is that? So again, we went over all these accounts where witnesses knew that there were, 6 or 7 other shooters. So they wouldn't want to go to classes with them. I mean, there were actually other students who refused to return because I believe Perry was not on that list. I think Perry did return, and 1 or 2 other guys did return in the alleged trenchcoat mafia. So there were other students who were victims or whatever. They were present, obviously victims of that situation, and they did not go back to school because they didn't want to go to school with murderers who they saw shoot people. So that's their words, not mine. We went over this before. I wasn't there. I'm not going to pretend and hallucinate like the clueless Dunning-Kruger coincidence theorist crowd what did or didn't happen when I wasn't there, and they're refusing to release all of the other security footage, and they're refusing to release all the documents. So there's really no way to know for sure, but it's clearly a shady situation. So that's it for now. In the next episode, we'll be going over all of the specifically satanic connections, vampires, and more in the Columbine Conspiracy series. Hope everybody found another edition of the MINDSHOCK podcast interesting, informative, thought-provoking, and mind-shocking. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. If you're not getting notifications, just make sure to like and comment on more videos. That's how the YouTube algorithm works. You can also support the channel by becoming a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.